going to do that. So we have a technical lead here, and that's Jaya or Jay. I'm sorry, I didn't. Jay. So she's going to respond for all the connections and technical issues. Okay, so if looks like we're fine, and I'm not sure about the presentations, but hopefully everything will be good. And I'm the chair, Yimin Bao from National Center for Biotechnology, Bioinformation in China. And I do have co-chair Lian here. And so I'm going to introduce basically all the speakers, and then and also keep the timing for each talk. So if I understand correctly, every speaker has 10 minutes, and so that includes 1 minute of transition and introduction, and 8 minutes of a talk, and then 1 minute for one question and answer. So what I'm going to do is, by the instruction from the organizer, is that I'm going to give you one alert 1 minute before the end of your talk. So so I'll set my timer to 7 minutes after you start, and then it's going to sound like this. Can you hear this alarm thing? So if you hear this, that means you have 1 minute left. So you need to hurry up and wrap up your presentation. Okay. So and then Ian's going to collect questions from the chat box from audience, and then she's going to pick one from them, because we only allowed one question, and then we'll go from there. Are there any questions about this this stream? It's not session, it's a stream. So if not, I think let's. Is it time now? Are we supposed to start from like 45? It's already 49 now. So I think let's get started. So let me just introduce some of the this stream. So the title of this is Best of the Digital Preservation in 2020. So I noticed from the abstract of the talks, so many of them covering the situation of COVID-19, which is a very hot topic. And also our speakers came from various kind of organizations, including universities and libraries, and I think some commercial entities. And they are also, the topics is kind of varies a lot, including how do we deal with this COVID-19 situation in settings like universities, and how do we do archiving of social media, and how what kind of new audience that we have. So I think it's going to be pretty interesting. So let's get started. The first speaker is Vajrapong Krongthanabong from Chulalongkorn University. And Vajra, can you share your screen?
Yes, please.
And you can, let me set my timer, and you can start when you are ready.
Okay. Can I start now?
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Everything's good.
Yeah. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Vajrapong Krongthanabong. I work as a lecturer at the Department of Library Science, Faculty of Arts, Chulalongkorn University in Bangkok, Thailand. And today I'm very glad to participate in We Meet IPress Festival. And my presentation today we're talking about how the COVID-19 pandemic bring opportunities for digital preservation education in Thailand. And it's quite difficult to refuse that the COVID-19 pandemic had brought us a lot of challenges in every aspect of our life. And these happen to all across the world. But nowadays, the COVID-19 situation in Thailand is better, but it's still recommended that everyone shall comply with the social distancing practice strictly for health safety. And this is some photos that I captured from the university canteen. But that is quite, the situation in the several months ago, when the COVID-19 pandemic was at its peak in Thailand, the offices, schools, university, and other recreation places were temporarily closed. And this closure drove us to uptake digital technologies for business operation, delivering services, learning and teaching, and communication. For example, people work from home, had to attend the meeting online via Zoom, and using the electronic record system a lot. Another example in the context of teaching and learning, a number of teachers has to switch from on-site classroom to online classroom. So the teaching notes and assignments are born digitally created. And for besides, the people and institutions also share a lot of their digital photos and video clips through social media. So from that moment, the amount of digital content has been created and shared dramatically via various platforms. And that is question us about how to document this situation and how to preserve this valuable digital content. But we're still wondering how to improve ourselves, like skills and knowledge in digital preservation. But at that time, even though it's bring us the outbreak, bring us a lot of challenges, but I think that is a great time for us to professional development as well, because with the advance of digital technology, we could attend conference and webinars and some online courses across the globe, no matter we are. And so this saves cost and time. And for example, I would like to highlight the online course from DPC, the Novice to Know-How online digital preservation training. I joined that training work program that is very great. But how about in Thailand? There are many organizations providing the free online webinar via Facebook Live or channels. For example, on the International Week of Archive, the National Archive of Thailand hosts a series of online conferences talking about the role of records and archival management at the time of COVID-19 situation. They were available online through Facebook Live, so the public across the country could attend the event and from their place. And another challenge, but that gives the opportunity for our undergraduate students too. During from May to August, our senior undergraduate students have to do the practicum. So they have to go to the internship at information organization, but we could not allow that. So we changed from that to do a small scale research projects. And some students, my students, question about how could we archive the Facebook post? How could we archive the digital content that related about the COVID-19 and the economics? So this is about like 3 projects that they have chance to practice and to learn new skills on digital persuasion. And another evidence showing me the awareness of digital persuasion in our society is the archivist at the Memorial Hall of the university. She invited Dr. Niya Sujachaya, my colleagues, who keen on the archival management, and I joined the talk for the university radio on the topic about documenting the COVID-19 crisis and the roles of the social media records. Explained, talking about how could we preserve or do the digital archiving during this pandemic outbreak. So for me, I'm strongly believe that our community in Thailand is increasingly aware of preserving digital materials. Then I think it could the COVID-19 pandemic shed some light for digital preservation education in Thailand. But for the next step, what our department have to do. First of all, I think this situation ignites the awareness of significance of digital preservation. And we, information scientists, need to collaborate with related groups of stakeholders. So I think it's good to seeking for collaboration at any level, like institutional, national, and international levels, and across the disciplines. And next, I think the curriculum is another aspect that I have to figure out. First, to ensure the long-term access and use of digital materials, information professionals must have a working knowledge of digital curation. But now the topic of digital preservation in the curriculum might not be prominent. So it's time to revise curriculum to engage important issue of digital preservation at both undergraduate and postgraduate programs. The last one, I'm thinking about the training and workshops. During this time, even for information professional ourselves, we would like to develop our skills in digital preservation. So I think that's a need for professional development on digital preservation in Thailand. And in our community, in gallery, library, archive, and museum community, and also from outside, especially from the other information-centric disciplines. So, and also the short course might be preferable for them than taking the full-time postgraduate program at this moment. So to sum up, I still have positive thinking that this pandemic give us the light of the role of information professional and the awareness of digital preservation in Thailand. Yes, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wachi. And Leanne, do we have any questions from the audience?
Yeah, there's nothing in the chat room just yet, but I did have a question myself, just as to experience. So the experience, I was thinking, Wachi, has this helped to define the fit of digital preservation into our other workflows concerning access and future use?
Mm-hmm. Pardon?
So has the experience, the COVID-19 pandemic, helped to better define how digital preservation fits in with our other workflows? Such digitization, it's often kept very separate.
Yes, I think I think we like the concept of digitization, digital preservation, and digital curation sometimes and back up. Sometimes for some people, they think it's the same thing, but I think it's time for us to clarify them in practice. How is the difference between these concepts?
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you very much. And our next speaker is Michaela Hart from Department of Health and Human Services from Melbourne, Australia. And she's going to talk about social media archiving, the pandemic edition. And please, Michaela, when you are ready, you can start.
Thanks very much, and thanks, Wachi. It was really fascinating to see that insight, and I think we'll have a few similarities in our presentations today. So, hello everyone. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge that I am presenting to you today from the traditional owners of the land that I live and work on. They're the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and extend that to any First Nations people with us here today. My name is Michaela Hart. I work for the Department of Health and Human Services as a digital archivist. It's a state government department. As you can imagine, I've been pretty busy these last 6 months during the pandemic, and I am really delighted to be here today. I'm not going to discuss any technology. There's not time, and also the regulatory environment that each of us work in means there's not a one-size-fits-all solution. And there are some great vendors out there and plenty of advice. And also for those of you that caught Zephy Kavadius's talk on day one, there was some really excellent examples and some stories about the tech complexity and tools of working with social media archiving. So I'd recommend you look that up. So social media by its nature is created and stored digitally. It's the third-party ownership of that record that means that an urgent technical solution is required to bring that which is yours under control. I'm going to talk about Twitter because that is where the bulk of my department's platform usage has grown exponentially during this time. Acknowledging other social media platforms are available. This is our official record for our department. This is from our Twitter account. This is today's statistics for those of you in Victoria who haven't had a chance to look. 12 new cases of COVID-19 is a really great number. So our state authority, the Public Records Office, have really clear guidelines about what social media content and what should be captured at a record. So the borders of our record keeping are clear from a compliance point of view. And what is less clear is some of the other things that I'll talk about today, and I'm hoping that we can have a little bit of fun because there hasn't been a lot of that going on lately. So this is also the official account of our Chief Health Officer, Professor Brett Sutton, who has become somewhat of a social media sensation during the pandemic. So he's very active on Twitter. He does his own tweets. He also fronts up every day to our briefing, unless he takes some time off. So what happened last month when he took a few days off was that social media, he went viral basically. This is an example of the great humor that he's been able to engage, and that's partly responsible, I think, for why he has become such a sensation. I didn't know who Nickelback was, like giving myself away. And you can see here, he's gone, wait, does this mean he's resigned? And he's replied with, I've resigned to keep 3 people occupied with messy craft, a 1,000-piece puzzle, and Lego dinosaurs. So he's incredibly relatable. There's also new merchandise. So this is where I've gone, not even official. It's not even a record, but it's important in the way that it relates to his role in this time, in this pandemic. And so if you so desire, you can go to Redbubble and get a Brett Sutton shop apron. There is stickers. Last time I looked, there's masks. Brent Wants Me at Home, of course, is a humorous take on the fact that we are in Victoria, we're all under a stay-at-home order. And then there is the deliberately blank side, because this is the things that I don't want to talk about. Not safe for work. There is a lot of fan fiction out there, and yeah. Anyway, we won't talk much more about that. I'm not usually one to blush, but there we go. What I want to do is I make it clear that I don't see myself as an ethnographer, and I don't think it's my responsibility as a state archivist, state government department archivist, to preserve records complete with all of their story analysed. That's for the future historians, but it is my responsibility to capture the context. So our department secretary talks about our department being in the unique position of leading and living in this pandemic. And if there was ever a time to draw the line between the fact that I can't be neutral in this position, then it's now. But I want there to be a record of this community showing their love and their frustration and their anger and their engagement with our department through social media in this way. So I guess that's, you know, the nuance. And I can do that by ensuring, and this is where I guess I found Vachi's relatable previous presentation, because I'm thinking about I can do that by ensuring that at least one exchange from the unofficial goes into our official record, so that there's a trail of breadcrumbs, and then quietly pointing the parody accounts to the Internet Archive, so that hopefully those are left for future researchers, or I can actively engage and seek relationship with colleagues across the sector in other memory institutions, such as the State Library and Museums Victoria, and of course the Public Records Office, to embed the links between the official record and everything else that I've described here today. Also, I've realised as I've been doing this, getting this talk together, that there is, this is not a unique situation to us here in Victoria. It seems Chief Health Officers around the world, in Canada and Sweden and New Zealand, are all, and those are just the ones that I know about, are all experiencing this same kind of unprecedented media stardom. So perhaps we do need an international standard for when our public officials become media sensations. I don't know. Maybe that's a conversation for another day. Yeah, and when I asked, I did a little bit of a straw poll of my friends and family last night. I don't normally let them guide collecting decisions, but it was really interesting to see how important everybody thinks that this story is to be captured. So yeah, that's all from me for now. Thank you very much. And I don't know how I've done for time, but how did I go?
Sorry, I muted my mic, but right on the spot. The sound is so perfect.
Okay, thanks everybody.
Any questions?
Yes, we do have a question for you, Michaela. Have you been capturing screenshots of the tweets or just the info surrounding them? And a little bit more on that merch.
We've got a third-party vendor currently doing some of the scraping for us, but I'm still in the process of trying to decide where we set the borders of that. So it's sort of putting this presentation together has really started helping me shape that, and I'll be going to our steering committee next month with some more recommendations around that. So. I can see one of the members of that steering committee here today, so hopefully they'll be ready for this conversation. The merge, that's where I think that relationship with, you know, it's not a state records job to start making sure that there's copies of the aprons and the doona covers and the tea towels, but I'm hoping that the State Library or someone has been set up as Redbubble account and has been keeping copies. Professor Sutton also has his own coffee mug, which has got Pandemic Suck on it, that someone made for him. So I'm hoping that he might donate that to somebody, to the right place. And I think that that should stay with the department or the Public Records Office. I don't know.
Julian volunteered that yes, there's been collecting for the ephemera collection.
Great, yeah. Excellent, awesome.
Okay, Very good. Thank you,
Great.
Mikala, for the
Thanks
nice
very much,
presentation.
everyone.
And our next speaker is Valerie Love from National Library of New Zealand, and she's going to talk about documenting life online in Aotearoa, New Zealand during COVID-19. Valerie, you can start when you're ready.
Great, thank you. Kia ora koutou katoa. So my name is Valerie Love, and I'm the Senior Digital Archivist at the National Library of New Zealand, Te Puna Mātauranga o Aotearoa. So today I'll be speaking on behalf of the library's Social Media Collecting Working Group. Apologies for my cat. And I will be sharing some of the library's work to document online content and digital ephemera relating to Aotearoa's experience of the global COVID-19 pandemic and lockdown. So the National Library is responsible for collecting the documentary heritage of Aotearoa, New Zealand, and web archiving and collecting online publications is part of our core work, which we do under the library's legal deposit mandate. We know that online content can have an extremely short shelf life. So COVID-19 was particularly challenging because nearly every website in our collecting list was continually updating their site with new information about COVID-19 that we wanted to capture, in addition to there being dozens of new websites being created. So it was very difficult for our small team of web archivists to keep up. And some pages on the government's Unite Against COVID-19 site were changing up to 20 times a day, so having a weekly harvest wasn't going to cut it. But we also knew that there was much more content out there than just the types of electronic materials that we'd been previously collecting. And so we began having conversations via Zoom across teams to see what we could and should be collecting during lockdown. So we wanted to support the web archivists, who obviously had lots of work to do. And there was also a lot of official communication that was happening via social media channels, much like Michaela has mentioned in the Victoria context. So there really was a need and a desire to be capturing this kind of content. We developed a grassroots COVID-19 collecting working group, which I served as coordinator for, and this met regularly during the lockdown via Zoom. And the working group included teams across the library, but it really evolved rather organically. We had people from legal deposit, preservation research and consultancy, and the digital collecting teams, and then others sort of floating in and out as their time allowed. And we also checked in informally with colleagues at Archives New Zealand and the Te Papa National Museum, so that way we weren't duplicating efforts. Library leadership checked in from time to time, but mostly just let us get on with the work. So our main purpose was to work together to ensure that the impact of COVID-19 and the lockdown would be well documented in the library's collections. Our legal deposit mandate allowed us to acquire websites and publish materials in real time, but we wanted to make sure that any collecting that we were doing was appropriate and respectful, because this was new territory for all of us. And at the time of the initial lockdown, we really had no idea how New Zealand would fare in all of this. So we had robust discussions with our curatorial team over Zoom about the ethics of collecting in a pandemic and how best to move forward. And we also wanted to make sure that our work didn't come at the expense of anyone's physical or mental well-being. So the library established a three-phased approach to manage collecting activity. We had the initial rapid response digital collecting of online material, which the working group focused on from March to June. That was followed by an outreach and information sharing period. And then our next phase is a collecting call for people to donate COVID-19 related material, either physical or born digital. So the web archivists regularly run hashtag crawls using Twark and the Twitter API, and had been collecting COVID-19 NZ as a hashtag and other related hashtags on Twitter since early March, when they began trending. The library had also begun accepting downloaded Facebook and Instagram archives into our collections as donations from individuals in recent years, but we hadn't really actively collected from those sites. But we had been wanting to expand our social media collecting for a while in order to add to the diversity of voices and experiences within our collections. And during lockdown, as events shifted from live to live stream, we had a unique and unexpected opportunity to collect in ways that we hadn't before. So we first developed a brainstorming document with an overview of the types of material that we might want to collect. And then the working group created a shared spreadsheet to enter specific online content for consideration, whether it be a single video on TikTok, a band's concert from their lounge, or the full social media account of an organization or public figure, or sometimes public servant turned celebrity, as with the case of our Brett, Dr. Ashley Bloomfield. And in this first stage, our aim was really to identify the broad types of content that were out there and experiment with ways we might be able to collect it. So from there, we categorized the digital content depending upon whether it was music or performance, other videos, image files, memes, or other content in line with our collecting plans. And the collecting spreadsheet noted what platform the content was located on, which helped us determine next steps for acquisition. Our technologists, Jay Gattuso and Svetlana Korotiva, then investigated what tools and scripts were already out there to collect social media content and built a new Python tool, the Harvester Manager, to integrate existing open source code and bespoke scripts into one place. And we began experimenting with harvesting social media from platforms such as Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, and even from TikTok and Twitch, which we hadn't really worked with before. So how did it work? The Harvester Manager would read the collecting spreadsheet, determine the type of social content, and then run the correct tool for the platform. The harvested content is then saved to a designated storage location, and the outcome of the harvest recorded on the Google spreadsheet, whether it was successful or not. And this slide shows some of the scripts that the Harvester Manager uses in order to acquire content from different platforms. It's currently able to work with 6 different social media platforms, but has very varied results in terms of getting, in terms of the type of content it's able to acquire, as well as contextual metadata. And so spoiler alert, some social media content is easier than others to collect. And so there's a lot more work to be done to really make it have all of the functionality that we would really ideally want. So the Harvester script focused on the types of material that the group felt was most significant to capture during our initial rapid response collecting phase. Our aim was really to identify and collect as much material as we could at the time and save appraisal and processing decisions for a little bit later down the track. So over 3 months, the Harvester tool allowed us to automate the acquisition of 350 social media campaigns or social media collections or individual objects. And individual Facebook videos were the greatest number of items that we collected, mainly due to the fact that the Prime Minister would stream videos on her Facebook page, and we wanted to collect those as a key priority. And those videos also included auto-generated transcripts in the Facebook metadata, which was an unexpected and rather exciting discovery. We were really excited about the possibility of collecting Instagram, but weren't able to automate collecting images with their captions and comments during the initial collecting period. And we agreed that the images themselves weren't sufficient without that contextual metadata. So we're currently employing more manual processes to collect images and memes, with more development flagged in this area. So since March, we've collected over 1,000 memes, many of which are specific to Aotearoa, New Zealand, and provided a bit of levity during quite trying times. New Zealand has been extraordinarily fortunate with our experience during the pandemic thus far, particularly in relation to the US, where I'm from, but it's still very much an ongoing situation. And in this second wave, we're really seeing how disinformation and misinformation are having an impact as well. So I know that time is coming to a close, so just really briefly, in terms of next steps, we're now having those more in-depth conversations with creators whose material we would like to actively collect as a donation rather than under legal deposit. And we will be moving ahead with the significant appraisal and processing work still to be done with what we've collected so far. We're also working on a rights and access statement for the collection and social media policies going forward. And finally, I'll just say a massive thank you to my colleagues on the working group, especially our technologists, Svetlana, Jay, and Ben. And thank you all so much for your time and for joining us today. Ngā mihi nui, kia kaha, and stay well.
Thank you very much, Valerie. And are there any questions? Yeah.
Yes, there is. There's a by Wachi During supervising the student research projects, they faced difficulty to find free software tools to archive social media. Finally, we tried to use Web Recorder to archive Facebook posts. Did you experience that at all, and any suggestions?
Yes. So Facebook is notoriously tricky. We've done a bit of experimenting with Web Recorder as well, with sort of mixed results. My colleague Jillian can probably speak to that better than I can. And with our harvesting of Facebook, we were really able to we really focused on those videos. So we didn't get full posts. There was a lot in Facebook that we weren't able to collect in that short period of time. But the Harvester script is it's all available on GitHub. So feel free to take a look, and it has more information about some of the open source tools that we were able to find. Jillian, did you want to add anything real quick? Jillian's put a comment in.
Okay, well, because time is up, so let's just move up to the next speaker, who is Chalida Yuabamrangjit from Thailand. And she's going to talk about new audience during COVID-19. Chalida, you are ready. You can start when you are ready. Can you share your screen? Can everybody see it? Because I saw you start to.
I can
yeah.
see it. Yeah, can't hear.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, everybody. My name is Chalida Uabamrungjit, and I am the director of the Thai Film Archive in Thailand. And this image is from the one of the cinema in the archive. So thank you for having me part of the We Miss iPress today. And I'm gonna talk about the new audience like during the COVID-19. I would like to talk about, introduce you about the film archive. The Thai Film Archive was established in 1984 as a national archive in charge of preserving Thailand's cinematic heritage, which is like date back to 1897. So our collection is not only film, we also have all kinds of material, tapes and paper document, and not only feature film, we have from documentary, newsreel, and home movie. And this is the image from the Maya City, which is part of the museum. And we are situated outside of Bangkok in Saraya in Nakhon Pathom. And this is one of the vault that we preserve film. As I said, that we preserve both analog and digital format. And we also do promote the access of cinema in various forms, such as screening, museum, and exhibition. This is one of the group of students visit the film museum. And also another group of students. So you see that our activity is very mostly physical. And this is our school cinema program. So we have students from school coming to watch film in our cinema. And also the library, if you want to do research into the film collection and books and documents about film. So you have to come and visit that in Saraya. But when the pandemic, COVID-19 happened in May, cinema, I think, is the first place to be closed. So we have to close our service since March 18. And then since most of the activity in the past is very physical, so we come to the question, how do we give the service to the people during this time? So we look at our YouTube channel, which is usually it's not very active because as you see it here, it started in 2010, which is like 10 years ago, but due to copyright restriction, so we mainly upload like news reel or historical events, and we have around like 20,000 subscribers before March. And because I think a lot of people think we are very, very formal and kind of like not fun. But then because we all have to work from home and we just grab something that we can work on, and just try to, and we start to discuss with our, I start to discuss with our colleague that we should use the online platform. So in the beginning, a lot of people they do like film screening online, but as I said that we the copyright is kind of complicated, and to clear copyright during the pandemic time is not easy. So we come up with the new playlist called in Thai is quite funny. It's called ห่างกันสักพัก COVID-19. It's like from a song, so it's like stay a bit distant in the time of COVID-19. So it's kind of fun, and I think media likes it. So we're gonna post like one video a day, and it can be long film, short film, and anything that we're gonna introduce. And I think people kind of enjoy the idea of this one. So but for us, we have to think about like what film has been digitized and what metadata is ready, and what are the thing that people interest, because like different people have different interests, and before that I personally think people like to see fun thing on YouTube, but maybe I'm wrong about that. And but this is what we learn, that maybe it's not. Actually, small thing can be interesting too, like this clip about the last day of Bangkok trams, which is like 2 minutes. It's like one of the most popular video in the past 2-3 months. So I think people want to reconnect with the like past and present, and we read the feedbacks, so we know that like what else we can curate and to put it into. One of the things is very popular is the animation. This is like the first Thai animation from 1955, and we have increased 500,000 view during this pandemic time. So people kind of like rediscover this film and share it a lot. Original content, like this is the Molam, which is like the northeastern music that usually you listen to it, but you don't really see the performance. So this is a very rare from 1965 performance. And or maybe like daily life, like a good old day, you know, when you condense milk with water, things like that. People love it a lot. Or recently, young people are very political active in Thailand. So I think there's a new interest in whenever we share like political or historical footage, like a lot of young people would be interested and share it. So this is the result and the number that during about 2.5 months that we put this playlist, we have more than 100%, like we have like 122% increase of subscriber, and we have 3 million views. And you can see that the majority of the people who watch our YouTube is the 25 to, it's like under 35 years old. So it's not really it's about like young people want to connect with the history. So that's what I learned. And right now we have, this year we have like 5 million view only this year, and right now almost 60,000 subscriber, which is like double than 10 years before, like a 9 years record with compared to 1 year's record. So I think this is a lot of progress that we have. And last but not least, because all of our contents, most of our contents are Thai, so we make a special playlist for international, and you can use the QR code there. It's called like some highlight from the playlist, this playlist. And thank you very much. I think I just made it right.
Yeah, right on time. Okay, thank you, Alida. Any questions from the audience?
Yeah, I think that was so fascinating. And there is a question about sharing the from Rachel McGregor. Can you share the link of the last Bangkok tram YouTube clip? She knows a few people who would love to see it. She's still struggling to find it on YouTube as my Thai skills are not good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you pop that into chat, Chalida, that would be great.
Yes, okay, great. Okay, so let's move to, thank you again, Chalida. And let's move to the last speaker, who is Samaya Lamley from University of Sydney. And she's going to talk, I believe, about minimum processes, digitization from a digital preservation perspective. And Samaya, you can start when you are ready.
Great. I am sharing my screen. Everyone can see my slides. So there's an image of one of the buildings at the University of Sydney. My background is in digital preservation, and I have previously talked at an iPreses about being operationally pragmatic. And I think last year when I moved to the University of Sydney, this needed to happen. And now with COVID and the pandemic and, you know, the economic environment we all find ourselves in now and going forward, that we will need to possibly be more so. So firstly, I want to pay my respects to the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of this land and these waters where I am today, and to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Sovereignty has never been ceded. I also want to extend my respects to First Nations people around the world and to their elders past, present and future. So I'm part of the digital collections team at the University of Sydney Library, and there are 6.6 FTEs in our team, including myself. And this is just a little bit of context. The work of this team covers both business as usual and projects in the areas of digitisation, making available digital content through our DAMs, managing our open access repository, DOI minting, born digital thesis submissions, some experiments in text data mining, migrating digital content from older services, a COVID collecting project, and more. I can go on. So as you can see, with those resources, there's not that much time for digital preservation concerns. At iPres 2018, I used to work in the UK on the digital preservation at Oxford and Cambridge project, and my former colleagues and I put together a poster based on an international digital preservation survey. One of the 5 areas of the survey looked at digital preservation resourcing, and down in the bottom corner of my slides, I just pulled something from that survey. At the time, 2 years ago, the average digital preservation resourcing in Australasia was 5.7 FTE, but I do think that that was probably heavily weighted to Australian and New Zealand national and state-based institutions. So going forward, we're going to need to make sure that we factor in digital preservation activities earlier in the workflow so that it isn't overlooked while we are dealing with immediate access needs. And so the main focus of my work over the last year or so has been around the digitisation of legacy print-based theses. And these theses are from the last 100 or so years. I've been working with 2 digitisation vendors, particularly one, and when I arrived at the University of Sydney, I took the opportunity to review the digitisation outputs of these projects, so about 4 years worth of digitisation activities. I found a range of issues and I wrote up a report, and that's probably a topic for a Digital Preservationist Anonymous, so TPC, take note. And I continue to document issues as I find them, and I do find them every other week. And so these are some of the theses that we have been digitising with our external vendors: handwritten, typeset, etc. Lots of stuck in photographs, fold outs, etc., etc. They're not just print based. And then I decided to do some more analysis, this time of our in-house digitisation activities. So we have a Triventus Scan Robot 2.0, and I needed to understand our existing digitisation infrastructure and all the dependencies that were there. I discovered along the way that there was a lack of some documentation. There was also a hardware issue, and then a workflow issue came along, and I've just recently resolved the hardware issue, and we've resolved the workflow issue with our vendor in Austria. And along the way, I documented this. And so what I can say is that if I don't document it within 48 hours, it's gone from my head. So it really is a process of documenting as you go. And I've written up some technical guidelines so that it isn't me that is the single point of knowledge with our in-house processes or with our vendors. But moving along. So yes, we're talking about digitisation, but my area isn't still image digitisation. And so I do want to make sure that what happens further down the line, we're not creating additional problems for ourselves, or where we know that they are, we can try and address them. So I do want to say thank you to Dave Thompson, wherever you are in the universe now. The concept of baked-in digital preservation, really getting it into early stages of your workflow, has been really important, and I am really trying to embody this in our existing processes. We also made some decisions about what we could change, some minor changes, and decisions about where we would just, it wasn't ideal, but we needed to keep things the same. So small improvements, without going into a long side story. Even though our access copies in theory should be throwaway and regenerated from the preservation masters, in practice that's not really the case, because we have processes applied to our access copies, like signature redaction is applied to our access copies rather than to a co-master file. So we know that we're going to have to live with our access copies for quite a long time. So we've done minor changes where we have decided to move to PDFA so that we're trying to future-proof some of our access copies and not have to redo that work in the short or medium term. Some of the other things that we've needed to start doing as well is to generate some checksums on transfer from a vendor. We weren't getting any checksums from the vendor, and we haven't asked the vendor to provide those just yet. And also making some minor changes, like changing to the MMS ID rather than the barcode for the persistent identifier. Because barcodes fall off these theses, they're older physical items, and barcodes can be replaceable. So the numbers change, and it's a bit hard to call it a persistent identifier if it isn't particularly persistent. And then the decisions to retain what we've got, even though it's not ideal. So our submission information packages are DSpace specific. So rather than moving to something like a Bagot standard, because we don't know where our intended destination for ingest is just yet, and that will probably remain this way for the next few years, we decided to stick with, because it still is a standard that we know how to interpret, even though it is DSpace specific, we know that we'll probably have to repackage before ingest in the future anyway. So rather than have all these different packaging standards, to at least just stick to what we've got and then do a big change when we need to do that, but documenting and understanding what we've got. And then, as I've said, I keep on saying documentation, but I do mean it because I have written down a lot of things that weren't written down previously over the last year. Just a few little things. So this is what we want to do in the short and medium term, all the things that we've actually achieved. And these seem like small achievements, but in the context of a global pandemic, they really are big wins, and they're big wins to me, and I do think that there will be big wins to our team. So we're able to remote access into our Traventus room, into all the servers and the scan robot and the other PCs in there. My colleagues Ryan and Kim and myself have set up QC checking workstations that have repurposed existing PCs, and we're able to remote access into there. I've set up some tools like Droid and Job and VeraPDF and TerraCopy, and I'm hearing an alarm going off. So I'm just going to wrap this up and say, celebrate your small wins, iteratively improve with the vendor. And we've done some very deep month-long work with the digitisation vendor, working through our digitisation specifications. And then into the future, we need to monitor our data, because at the moment we're not really doing that. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Maya. Any questions?
There's a couple of comments, as in which I was going, yay, documentation myself. Valerie said yes to documentation. And Harry says agree, and yes to barcodes and not PIDs. That was awesome, Samaya. Thank you.
Thanks.
Great. Well, thank you so much for all the 5 speakers. And we have a little time for additional questions if people didn't have to ask earlier. So
there is another question just popped in from Carrie. Excellent work. Would love to know a bit more about how you're managing multiple access versions.
Yes, this is one of the many nails that you've hit on the head here. So one of the things I had to do retrospectively was create a data model and then try and fit what we've got into a data model. So it's only a draft, but I'm happy to share it with you. And then managing it, a lot of the management of our access copies is very manual at the moment. So we know it's an area of improvement. Yes.
great. I think David just put another question there.
Yeah, so Pres Masters are still TIFFs, David. We couldn't do JPEG 2000 because we just don't have the technical expertise to do it. And yeah, there are decisions that were made at the time, but I'm happy to, iteratively improve and rethink this. But we went from a much older version and a much older flavor of PDF, so PDF 1.4, and we are still with our in-house stuff. That workflow hasn't totally updated because it does rely on a payment to a vendor to help us update that workflow.
Thank you. Any more questions? We are open up to everybody in the audience. Well, if not, since time is close to the next session, and I just first of all would like to remind everybody that when this is over, please move to stream 1 because there's another activity going on. So you're welcome to join the other part. And again, I would like to thank all the 5 speakers this afternoon or this morning or this evening to give excellent presentations and also keep up with the time. And also I would like to thank Jay and Leanne and our technical support and my co-chair for excellent work. And that's all. Thank you very much again. See you later.